Welcome back. This time we're talking about Valley of Bones, perhaps the first film to combine paleontology, crystal meth, and drug cartels into one story. Now, this weekend is one of the very few weekends we ever get out of the year in which we get no new wide releases. Usually that's relegated to like early January when we have a lot of Oscar bait holdovers. I'm pretty sure I read on Box Office Mojo this is the first time there have been no new wide releases on Labor Day weekend in like 25 years. So, that being said, I had to find something to watch. And there were a couple smaller releases making their debut this weekend, like Tulip Fever, and a couple other films that apparently had been working their way through their release schedule and had made it to my area, like Valley of Bones. And the premise seemed rather interesting. I like paleontology, I like thrillers, and let's see what happens. Unfortunately, this movie is an absolute mess. The acting is passable. There weren't any real standouts amongst the cast. No real bombs either. Just passable for what appeared to be a relatively low budget production. Unfortunately, the story, like I said, is a complete disaster. And the main problem is essentially none of the decisions any of these characters make across this film, from beginning to end, make any sense whatsoever. So what is the story? It revolves around a female paleontologist who apparently spent some time in jail years ago because she was caught digging on federal land without permission. She has a young son who doesn't seem to like her very much, and honestly, she doesn't really give him any reason to during the course of this movie. Our other main character is this meth addict who apparently has run afoul of a drug cartel who wants him dead for losing them money. And during the opening scene, he comes across a T-Rex tooth. And thus begins a lot of weird logical leaps in this movie. He has just survived an attempted assassination. That's not really a spoiler. It literally happens in the first minute of the movie. And what does he think? Well, years ago, he used to work with a guy whose brother was a paleontologist. And maybe if he can get a hold of this guy, he can sell this tooth and maybe the other bones in this area and make the money he needs to buy off the cartels. And that's basically the catalyst for this story. He does get in touch with his former co-worker, and the female paleontologist jumps at the chance and brings her son along because her father insists they need to have some quality bonding time. So they end up trying to dig up this dinosaur, and of course the meth dealers, cartel connections cause problems for everyone involved, and thus we have what I would assume they thought was going to be a thriller, but is honestly a really boring movie with a lot of talking, a very little bit of digging up dinosaur bones, and even less actual thriller action to speak of. So as I said, nothing in this movie makes sense. I could spend 20 minutes just detailing every illogical decision anyone makes in this movie. Now, obviously, people don't always make the perfect decisions, but the problem is we really have a problem rooting for any character in this movie. Really, the only character I actually liked is the brother-in-law, who is introduced as someone that the paleontologist doesn't like. Don't really know why. It's never really explained, but he's the only character I actually cared about. The kid is your typical angsty kid, although at least in this case we can understand why, because this woman is a horrible mother. Most of the decisions she makes in this movie, yeah, the kid, yeah, you got a point. Your mother sucks. I mean, the first time she meets the meth dealer, they meet in essentially a strip club. He has cuts on his face, his eyes all black and blue. It looks like he just nearly survived an assassination attempt. He shows her the tooth. She gets excited because there's some evidence on this tooth that would show that there's a full skeleton somewhere out in the Badlands. While they're talking, they've been talking all of like 2 minutes. These two guys show up and basically say like, "We thought you were dead. You're supposed to be dead. Why are you here? We'll be back to talk to you." And the woman's like, "Is that anything I need to worry about?" Yes! That's something you need to be worrying about. You're about to go out with this man into the desert with your young son. But he just goes, no. And she buys it. And it's not even the worst decision she makes. The decision she makes near the end of this movie, no. It was sort of the moral event horizon for her character. It's like, I don't care what you do after this. No, you're done. I can't root for you. I'm kind of hoping that you die and maybe the brother-in-law can raise the kid. I think he'd be better off. Yeah. But even before we get that, I mean, if there's any chance of you going to see this movie, I don't want to throw spoilers up. But essentially, yeah, this movie nothing makes sense. And it's like I said, it just gets to the point. There's no characters you can root for. It's pretty boring. It's mostly just people talking, which would be fine if they had anything interesting to say, which they don't. Look, I've never made a movie. The people who made this movie, they've made more movies than I have, and but at the same time, I'm on this channel talking about movies and trying to give you a recommendation on what to go see and what not to. I cannot in any way recommend you go see Valley of Bones. I'm sorry, it just did not work at all. I mean, it was an interesting premise, the idea of having paleontology mixed into some kind of thriller. That sounds like there's promise there. Hopefully, one day we might actually get a good one. So that's my thoughts on Valley of Bones. If you've seen it, sorry. But yeah, I really don't have any questions for you. Just, what's your favorite movie about dinosaurs or paleontology? There we go. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and think about subscribing to my channel. Check out some of my other videos, and until next time, I'll see you at the movies.